My name is Maya. I'm 32 years old, and 6 months ago, I learned exactly how fast a family can destroy you. I wasn't poor. I wasn't desperate. I had a career I'd built from nothing, a husband who once made me feel safe, and a secret I'd held for 12 beautiful days. I was pregnant. I didn't want to announce it that night, but my mother-in-law, Diana, had spent 3 years treating me like a thief who married her son for money I didn't earn. Every family dinner followed the same script. Veiled comments about my job, smiles that didn't reach her eyes, and Liam, my husband, squeezing my hand under the table, whispering, "She doesn't mean it." But she meant it. She always meant it. Then there was Richard, Diana's husband, Liam's father. He was the quietest person in any room. A retired accountant who had spent 40 years learning that disagreeing with Diana meant 3 days of silent treatment. He loved his son. He even liked me, I think. But Richard had built his entire life around one rule: don't trigger Diana. He watched her humiliate waiters, neighbors, her own daughters. And he said nothing. Not because he agreed, but because he was exhausted. He'd stopped fighting decades ago. That Sunday, the whole family gathered at Diana's house. Richard sat at the far end of the table, already reaching for his wine. Liam's 2 sisters, their husbands. Diana at the head, watching me like a hawk. I stayed quiet most of the meal. It was safer that way. Then Liam raised his glass. "Maya and I have news," he said, smiling. "We're having a baby." For 1 second, silence. Then his sisters gasped. Richard nodded slowly, a small, genuine smile. And Diana. Diana set down her fork, wiped her mouth, and looked at me with something I'd never seen before. Not anger. Calculation. "No, you're not," she said. The table went cold. "Mom," Liam started, but she held up one hand. Her eyes stayed locked on mine. "You expect us to believe this?" Her voice was calm, controlled. 3 years of living in my son's house, spending his money. And now, conveniently, when his trust fund matures in 8 months, you're pregnant. I didn't respond. I'd learned that defending myself only made her dig deeper. Richard set down his wine glass. For a moment, I thought he might speak. His mouth opened slightly. Then Diana glanced at him, just a flicker of her eyes, and he looked back down at his plate. That was Richard. He saw everything. He stopped nothing. "I've done my research," Diana continued, leaning back. "Lying about pregnancy to secure financial support is common. And you're exactly the type." Liam's sisters stared at their plates. Their husbands studied their napkins. Richard stared at the wall. No one spoke. No one defended me. "I have medical confirmation," I said quietly. "I can show you." Diana smiled. That slow, patient smile of someone who'd already decided what was true. "You'd forged that too." She stood up, walked around the table toward me. I thought she'd whisper something, a private humiliation. But Diana didn't believe in privacy. She believed in audiences. "You want to prove you're pregnant," she said, loud enough for the neighbors to hear. "Then let's see." And before I could stand, before I could understand, she grabbed my wrist, pulled me out of my chair, and yanked me toward the center of the room. I stumbled. My hip slammed into the edge of the table. Pain shot through my side, but I didn't cry out. I was too stunned. "Mom, stop," Liam said. But he didn't stand up. Richard finally looked up. His eyes met mine for 1 second. There was shame there. Real, heavy shame. But he didn't move. He never moved. Diana released my wrist, stepped back, and in front of her entire family, she pointed at me like I was a stranger. "You are not carrying my grandchild," she said. "And I will not let you destroy my son's future with your lies." That was the moment something shifted. Not anger. Not sadness. Clarity. If I stayed in this room, if I apologized, if I begged, I would be agreeing with her. I would be confirming that I was guilty until proven innocent. I looked at Liam. He wouldn't meet my eyes. I looked at Richard. He looked away first. I walked out. No yelling. No tears. Just the sound of my shoes on her hardwood floor and the front door closing behind me. Liam texted that night. She didn't mean it. "Come home." I didn't respond. Richard texted me 3 days later. Just 4 words, "I'm sorry, Maya." I didn't respond to him either. For 2 weeks, I stayed with my sister. I ate carefully, slept as well as I could. Every morning, I put my hand on my stomach and told myself, "You're fine. The baby is fine." But I wasn't fine. And 3 days later, I collapsed in my sister's kitchen. The last thing I remember was the floor rushing up. Then nothing. I woke up in a hospital room with fluorescent lights and the smell of antiseptic. Liam was beside me, holding my hand. He looked tired, relieved. "You're awake," he whispered. I tried to sit up. My body felt wrong. "Hollow." "The baby," I said. Liam's face changed. Relief collapsed into something else. "Maya, there was a complication. When you fell, they had to." He didn't finish. He didn't have to. I closed my eyes, counted ceiling tiles while my husband told me about internal bleeding, emergency surgery, choices he'd made without me. When I opened my eyes again, Diana was standing in the doorway. She wasn't crying. She wasn't apologizing. She was watching me, waiting. Behind her, in the hallway, stood Richard. He wasn't looking at Diana. He was looking at me. And for the first time, I saw something in his eyes that I'd never seen before. Not shame. Rage. Quiet, buried rage, directed at himself. The doctors said it was a rare complication. No way to know what caused it. They said I should rest and try again when my body was ready. They didn't know about the dinner, about Diana's hands on my wrist, about the table edge. I didn't tell them. Instead, I waited. Through recovery, through Liam's awkward comfort, through Diana's performative hospital visits, flowers, hand squeezes, and her favorite line, "These things happen for a reason." Richard didn't visit, but he sent a letter. Handwritten. It arrived at my sister's house a week after I was discharged. "Dear Maya, I have been a coward for 30 years. I watched her destroy our daughter's confidence. I watched her isolate our friends. And I watched her hurt you. I did nothing. I don't expect forgiveness. But if you ever decide to fight back, I will help. In any way I can. Richard." I kept the letter. I didn't respond. But for 6 months, I worked in secret. My sister helped. A forensic doctor I found online. An attorney who specialized in wrongful pregnancy loss. And Richard, quietly, carefully provided witness statements, text messages from Diana's phone, and access to the family home when Diana was away. None of them knew we were building a case. Richard thought he was just giving me closure. He didn't know about the lawsuit until the night it happened. Diana never knew anything. And tonight, on a cold, rainy night, I stood outside her front door. I knocked 3 times. She opened the door in her silk robe, a glass of wine in her hand. Her expression shifted from surprise to irritation to something slower, something that looked almost like fear. "Maya," she said, "what are you doing here?" I looked past her into the house. The same table, the same chairs, and Richard standing in the hallway, pale, holding the letter he'd written me 6 months ago. Behind me, headlights appeared at the end of the driveway. Not 1 car. 3. Diana squinted into the rain. "Who is that?" I didn't answer. The first car door opened. My sister stepped out, holding a thick folder. The second car door opened. Dr. Marchetti, the forensic obstetrician. The third car door opened. Rebecca Tang, the attorney. Diana's wine glass trembled. Richard stepped forward from the hallway. He stood beside me, not beside her. "Diana," he said quietly, "they're here for you." She turned to him. Her face changed from fear to confusion to something worse, betrayal. "Richard," she whispered, "what did you do?" He didn't answer. He just looked at me and nodded. I opened the folder. Diana grabbed the door frame. "Richard, what is this?" Richard didn't move. He stood beside me on the doorstep, rain soaking his shoulders. For 30 years, he had stood behind her. Tonight, he stood in front of me. My sister walked up the driveway and stopped beside us. She didn't look at Diana. She handed me the folder. Inside, medical records, time-stamped photographs, and the letter Richard had written 6 months ago, the one that started everything. Dr. Marchetti stepped forward. "I'm Dr. Elaine Marchetti, forensic obstetrician." I've reviewed Maya's medical records from the night of her hospitalization. Diana laughed, sharp and defensive. You brought a doctor to my door at 9 o'clock? Rebecca Tang stepped forward. Rebecca Tang, attorney. I specialize in wrongful pregnancy loss due to physical trauma. Diana's laugh died. I opened the folder. 6 months ago, you grabbed my wrist, pulled me out of my chair, and caused me to hit my hip against your dining table. 3 days later, I lost my baby. Diana's face was pale, but her voice stayed steady. You can't prove that. Dr. Marchetti spoke calmly. Actually, I can. The bruising pattern matches your table's exact height and angle. I reconstructed the scene using photographs taken the following week by Maya's sister while you were at work. Diana's eyes darted to my sister. You were in my house? My sister smiled. You left the door unlocked after Maya collapsed. Richard let me in. Diana whipped her head toward Richard. You let her in? Richard's voice was quiet. Yes. That was the first crack. Not shouting. Just the quiet realization that her own husband had turned. Rebecca Tang opened her own folder. Mrs. Cross, we have witness statements from your daughters, 3 household staff members, and your husband. Each confirms that you physically grabbed Maya during a family dinner on the night in question. Diana shook her head. They would have told me. They're my family. They didn't tell you, Richard said, because I asked them not to. I told them it was for a confidential family matter. Your own daughters signed statements 5 months ago. They've been sitting in my safe ever since. You never knew because you never asked. Diana stared at him. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. And there's more, Rebecca said. We have text messages from you to Richard, sent 2 hours after the incident. You wrote, and I quote, if she's lying about the pregnancy, the fall won't matter. If she's telling the truth, then nature will take its course. Diana's wine glass slipped. It shattered on the stone doorstep. Those were private, she whispered. Not anymore, I said. Richard stepped closer to his wife. For the first time in 30 years, he stood tall. I kept those texts, Diana. I've kept every nasty, cruel message you've ever sent. For 30 years, I told myself it was easier to stay quiet. Easier to let you hurt people than to fight back. But you hurt my son's wife. You killed my grandchild. His voice broke. And I sat there. I watched. I did nothing. He turned to me. Tears were running down his face. I'm not that man anymore. Diana's composure shattered. Not into tears, into raw, ugly panic. You can't do this, she said to me. Think about Liam. Think about the family. I thought about the family, I said. At the dinner table. In the hospital. During every silent car ride home. You all chose her. Except Richard. Richard chose me when it mattered most. Rebecca Tang held up the legal letter. Mrs. Cross, you are being served with a civil lawsuit for wrongful death of a fetus, assault, and intentional infliction of emotional distress. Damages sought. $2.7 million. Diana grabbed the doorframe. Her legs were shaking. Liam will leave you, she gasped. He'll never forgive you for this. I smiled. Not a cruel smile. A tired one. Liam already left, Diana. He moved out 3 weeks ago. He's been staying with his father. He knows everything. And he's not coming back to you. That was the final crack. Diana looked at Richard. Then at me. Then at the 3 women standing in the rain with folders full of evidence she never knew existed. You planned this, she whispered. For 6 months. Behind my back. In my own house. My sister stepped forward. We had 63 pieces of evidence, Diana. Photographs. Text messages. Medical reports. Witness statements from 7 people. You thought you'd gotten away with it because no one said anything at dinner. But silence isn't forgiveness. Silence is just patience. I turned and walked back down the driveway. Behind me, I heard Rebecca Tang handing Diana the legal documents. I heard Dr. Marchetti explaining the expert report. I heard Diana screaming Richard's name and Richard walking away. I didn't look back. 6 months later, the case settled. Confidential. But the amount was enough for me to buy my own house, start my own trust fund, and never need anyone's money again. Liam and I divorced. It was civil. He went to therapy. We don't speak, but I hope he's healing. Richard divorced Diana. He gave her the house and moved into a small apartment near his brother. He calls me every month. We have coffee sometimes. He's learning to forgive himself. I'm learning to let him. Diana lost everything. Her children don't visit. Her friends disappeared. She lives alone in that big house with the dining table she can't look at anymore. She thought silence meant defeat. But silence just meant I was waiting. And when I knocked on her door that rainy night, I wasn't asking for anything. I was telling her what was already true.